Hello everybody, my name is Alexandre Martinez and I am part of the Terranova project as a geoarchaeologist. I am here participating in the Conference on Sustainability to present a poster that shows how looking at the past energy regimes could help current landscape managers to cope with the transition to a low-carbon society. So I propose now to have a look at the poster. It is called From the Hunter-Gatherer's Subsistence Strategies to the Agricultural Non-Revolution, Using Energy Regimes to Reform the Stack of Cultural Phases. In this work, we focus on the notion of energy regimes, which, to put it simply, refers to the resources and the energy sources that are used by any society to sustain its activities. More precisely, we will focus on the first energy regime, which describes the way of life of hunter-gatherers until the adoption of agriculture, in a case study that is situated in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula. It is a dynamic poster, so let's start at the center with the current and major issue for humanity, which is a transition to a low-carbon energy regime. Anthropogenic climate change is a threat to the ecosystem and the human well-being. Our society has to adapt its energy regime and to make the transition to a low-carbon society. What we propose here is to have a view from the past. A long-term understanding of landscape dynamics and a view from past societies and their energy regimes can be used. In this work, we focus in the first energy regime, from the end of the last glacial maximum about 20,000 years ago, to the Neolithization, that is the adoption of agriculture and domestication about 5,000 years ago. To use information from the past, we constructed a substantial archaeological database. We specifically focused on archaeological remains that provided information on the subsistence strategies of the past populations, such as the dominant industry, the use of wild or domesticated resources, and the mobility of the populations. We did not use classic archaeological features because they would only allow to identify the cultural phases such as the Upper Paleolithic, the Mesolithic, and the Neolithic, for example. Cultural phases are based on the archaeological materials such as technology, art, etc., and do not explore the transitional processes between them. By doing so, we will only see the appearance of agriculture and domestication as a quick revolution in the way of life of hunter-gatherers. One way to understand the transition between each cultural phases is to use the notion of energy regimes. More precisely, we apply the energy regimes theory to the adaptive cycle from the resilience theory. That way, the cultural phases do not appear as a stack, but as a loop that explains the transitional processes. In this loop, the first phase is the growth of the society. From our case study, the highly mobile populations specialized, diversified, and intensified their use of wild resources since the end of the last glacial maximum. Starting from this point, the society became always more organized and interconnected with time. The second phase is conservative regarding its subsistence strategies. Transhumance activities appeared as the population became less mobile and more territorial. Then incipient agriculture, pastoralism, and domestication were adopted in contact of the new Neolithic settlers that came from overseas, but were mainly used as a buffer against shortage of wild resources. As the demography increased and the environment became overexploited, the society entered in the release phase, where an environmental and societal crisis is still buffered by the semi-domesticated resources. Eventually, the society reorganized itself to adopt a new and more sustainable way of life. This coincides with the expansion of domesticated resources to the detriment of wild resources. This will lead ultimately to the next energy regime. The same theoretical loop can be applied to the other energy regimes and explain how we came to build our current society over the past ones. To go further in time, we could cite that we used slave work on foreign resources after the Age of Discovery, until the Industrial Revolution that helped us to cope with the decolonization. And now we come back at our starting point, which is the need to adopt green energies and allow the environment to recover, to help us to cope with the environmental crisis that we created by overexploitation of fossil fuels.